The next item on the agenda is another item that we've been discussing for about 3 years now, House Bill 74, with Representative Kim King. Representative, come to the table and bring with you your special guests. So I can kind of get a lay of the land. Is there anybody here against the bill? I don't see it on my sheet. Is there anybody in the other room? If you're in the other room and you're against this bill, you can come on over here in the main room if you're watching on television. Welcome, Representative King. You two have, this is the second year we've discussed this. We heard it during the interim. It's been well vetted. And it looks to me like all the differences have been worked out with all the parties involved, and that's always great news. So please introduce yourselves for the record, introduce your guests, and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am State Representative Kim King, serving Jessamine, Mercer, and Washington counties. And yes, sir, just as you described, I think House Bill 74 is a wonderful example of working through the process, completely vetting, working out all the chinks before we present it to your esteemed committee. We do have support from some of the folks that spoke against this bill last year, but I would love for you to get a perspective from some of our special guests. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sheriff of Franklin County, Pat Melton, Chair and Senators. I appreciate the opportunity to attend this committee meeting.
Welcome, Sheriff.
Thanks, sir.
I'm Sheriff Kevin Corman of Jessamine County. I was president of the Kentucky Sheriff's Association when this bill was introduced.
Welcome, Sheriff.
Thank you very much, and I will let these two fine gentlemen give you a perspective from their personal experience, but just a little background and review. This talks about an online pawnbroker registry where law enforcement officials from their desk at their office can really work to solve upwards to 80, 85, sometimes even 90% of the stolen article cases in their specific counties. We did work with the Pawnbroker Association and have a very good House floor amendment that did pass 85-0 earlier last month. And it simply says that as far as a form of identification, a driver's license number, another state or federally issued picture ID and number, and if the customer would like to use their Social Security number for whatever reason, that's purely optional. If that customer would like to use that, they have that option as well. So would you like to give maybe a couple of experiences that you have and why this is such a good piece of legislation?
Well, as I've said before, this bill is invaluable to law enforcement. In my office last year, I know this is hard to conceive, but the girl that leads online every day for me recovered $100,000 worth of stolen property last year before the property was even reported stolen. You ask me, how does that happen? Well, you look for irregularities. You look for people that you know that don't have $35,000 worth of gold and silver to sell. You go to the parents or the grandparents of that person. Next thing you know, they go to their safe, they go to their closet, and they realize that their coin collection has been sold or pawned by their daughter or granddaughter who has a drug problem. Just last week, and I'll keep this short, just last week in Jessamine County, I had a call from a family whose mother was hospitalized. While she was in the hospital, her daughter and boyfriend stole 3 flat-screen TVs and Nintendo and took her car. And the only thing we knew was they posted a picture of themselves on Facebook with what appeared to be the ocean behind them. I did some legwork and found out the boyfriend was originally from Jacksonville, Florida. So I keyed up Leads Online, changed the search area from Kentucky to nationwide. Next thing I know, I found the flat screen TVs, Nintendo, at a pawn shop in Jacksonville, Florida. So I knew where they were, located the car. I mean, it's unbelievable that sometimes in 30 minutes time, you at least know where the stuff's at. And half of the battle, in my opinion, is getting the person's stuff back. Sometimes you find out from parents or grandparents, once they realize that our suspect is a child or a grandchild, all of a sudden they don't want to prosecute that person, but at least they want their stuff back. And that's what makes this bill so invaluable to law enforcement.
Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead, Sheriff.
With our detectives in the cases that we work, and they work a lot, this is a great tool for our men and women to use to recover individual property crimes. When you can sit at your desk and pull it up and run it, it sure does help. And those that are participating in it now makes a huge difference in being able to expediently recovery. It saves time, it saves money, but ultimately it helps all the citizens of our Commonwealth, and especially our county, in being able to have access and be able to use this type of project. Now that everybody's on board, it's a win-win for everybody. And I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Sheriff. At this time, I'll accept motion for passage. Thank you, Senator Buford. And okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion or questions? Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative King, Sheriffs, welcome. First of all, I've been contacted by all three sheriffs in my district, and I see Deputy Sheriff from Scott County, Gerald Porter, here today. Welcome, Gerald. So I know that law enforcement's behind this. I had some concerns on this bill when we heard it in the interim. I guess I'd like to hear what has been fixed since then. And my concern is, what about all the law-abiding people who buy products at pawn shops? Now there's going to be an online database where everybody can see what they bought. I have some sort of private property concerns here, protection of personal information concerns. So before I can vote for the bill, I'd like those to be addressed.
Senator Thayer, there is no database of items that's been bought at a pawn shop. Only items that have been sold or pawned to the pawn shop. So if you go to the pawn shop looking for a nice new steel chainsaw, you can buy that without us even knowing who bought it. It's all about us trying to, this database, it's all about us just trying to find out who took it and who pawned it. Believe it or not, last week I had a guy that worked for me, would borrow my chainsaw all winter long to saw his hardwood. I'd always have to ask for my chainsaw back. I was poking around on data leads online the other day, saw the guy's name, look, there's my chainsaw. He's pawning the sheriff's chainsaw. The fact of the matter is he didn't steal it, and that was his position on it. He wasn't stealing it.
He forgot to return it.
But he was using it for $50 at a time. So the key part of this bill is if we've got a suspect name, if we've got a suspect by the name of Tom Buford, for instance, we punch him in, we can
roll call.
That ought to pass.
You might want to take your motion back.
But we can not only search him as a suspect, but if we don't have a suspect, we can search the description of the items that was taken, and it will show every person that pawned a piece of property that has been reported stolen. And then it's not as easy when you don't have a suspect, but when you can type in steel chainsaw and you come up with 25 chainsaws, you naturally start looking for the ones that's been pawned in your general vicinity.
Senator Thayer, in addition to the law enforcement that is with us here today, we also have the support of obviously the Kentucky Sheriff's Association, Kentucky State Police, Kentucky League of Cities, KCO, and the Pawnbroker Association. At this meeting in 2017, we had a Mr. Barrett Block here with us, and he spoke in opposition. But now we have a 2-page letter showing his support for where we are in 2018 with House Bill 74. He's in law school now, so he wasn't able to join us today, but I do have that letter if you'd like to read it.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Proceed.
Thank you. So I see on line 5, affected or made by him. Probably should say or her, because I'm sure there are some lady pawnbrokers. So if I go in and buy a steel chainsaw, that doesn't become part, but if only what the pawnbroker purchases. So if he buys that stolen steel.
Yes.
Or pawns.
And Sheriff Dills is texting me at this moment telling me why my concerns should be alleviated. So,
well,
thank you very much.
Yeah, well, Senator Thayer, I appreciate you asking those questions. And these questions were asked last year by Senator Bowen and others that love privacy and love property rights. And I share those concerns. And it's a balancing act in judiciary. We go through this all the time, balancing the information that we're going to give and privacy versus what law enforcement is wanting. So it's a balancing act. But I take comfort in the fact that I had heard from many pawnbrokers last year, and I haven't heard from any this year. But we here on this committee not only have to do that, we have to represent all the people. And I think Senator Thayer's privacy questions are very pertinent to that we always need to be vigilant that we are protecting people's privacy rights. So thank you for asking those questions, Senator Thayer. Are there any other questions? Senator Carroll.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Last night I received a message not only from young Barrett Block, who by the way is my nephew, and his dad also called me, who owns the Castle stores. There are 9 of them in Kentucky, and he told me that this bill was now fine and that I could vote for it. You know how family is. They gave me permission to vote for it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
It's been a pleasure to work with him over the last 18 years.
He's an extremely bright child. If you saw his appearance on national television,
Okay.
where he won Jeopardy, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator McDaniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative King, I do appreciate where you've come from with this, but I have to side in my reading of this with Senator Thayer, that it says every pawnbroker keep a register of all loans and purchases of articles affected or made by him. And then also it says show the dates and amounts of all loans or purchases. So if we pass this out of here today, go back, get clarification, and it comes out that purchases have to be entered in this database, would you be opposed to an amendment that clarified that purchases did not have to? If I'm a consumer and I go into a pawn shop and I buy a legally pawned item, that those purchases did not have to go into this database. Would you?
The professional that'll be utilizing this.
Absolutely, that would be fine, because I'm sure that probably should say loans and purchasers from the seller, because that's the only thing that this database tracks. Is if you pawn an item, it's on the shelf for 90 days. If you purchase an item, it's there for 12. But once the item is sold, there is no. Now, if we come in 2 months from now looking for an item that was bought and sold, it's just a matter of whether or not they can remember who they sold it to.
Right.
But it does not become a part of this database in any way, shape, or form. And I think that word loans and purchases is for loans meaning pawns, purchases meaning buying
Pawnbroker
from the
bought
seller.
it from the seller, right? And but Mr. Chairman, if I may, could
You
we
may.
ask
Go
staff-
ahead. Yeah, I think you bring up a good
staff
point.
Just to take a look into that and verify that we're all on the same page. I think we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, but we certainly don't want to catch up people engaging in perfectly legal commerce and putting them in some kind of a registry here.
Well,
I think that would be.
I think we should, and if we need a floor amendment to clarify it, would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. The bill sponsor seems like he's. Are you in accord with that?
Yes.
Very well.
Absolutely.
Two things Senator McDaniel's picked off today.
I think it is referring to the last 2 lines of the bill on page 2, lines 4 and 5, when secondhand merchandise is sold to a pawnbroker. But we look forward to working with you to make sure that is clear.
We have 2 more people who still have questions, and we're going to take 2 more questions. First, we'll go to Senator Syme, and then after that, Senator Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the real question is, if I'm in a pawn shop and I wish to purchase something, what ID do I have to give you in order to purchase that?
None.
That's the answer. Thank you.
Okay, and Senator Bowen.
Senator Syme, thank you, Mr. Chairman, made my point. I mean, I think it's a moot point, actually, as much as I agree with Senator McDaniel and Senator Thayer on most points. It's a moot point if they don't request that information. You go in, they don't request it. So we might be splitting hairs here, because it's a moot point. If they don't request that information, you don't have to fill anything out. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're very welcome. No one on the sheet has signed up to speak against the bill, but I always like to check. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak against the bill? Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Bowen, Senator Buford, Senator Carroll, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Higdon,
Aye.
Senator Hornback, Senator Jones, Senator McDaniel, Senator Syme,
Aye.
Senator Thayer,
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote yes, get the bill out of committee, but I don't like it in its present form. I think it needs a clarifying amendment for consumer privacy protections. And if Senator McDaniel is going to work on that, it'll have a much better chance of going to the floor for a full vote. So I'm going to vote yes to move it along with that caveat that we need to fix that on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Chairman Shekel.
Aye. House Bill 74 is passed with favorable expression. Congratulations.
Sir, thank you, sir. We appreciate your time and consideration and look forward to seeing that floor amendment. Thank you.
You're very welcome.